Guys, welcome back to another Shared News from Home. Tonight we're doing our Bachelorette Week 7 recap live. But before we get into it, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you don't miss out on any future updates. As always, I'm your host, Gabby Gonta, and I'm joined by the lovely Avery Garooms tonight. Hi, Avery.
Hello, hello.
So, if you're joining us live right now, we want you to comment along with us during this broadcast because we're going to share your questions and reactions at the end. We're also live on Twitter, so go ahead and follow us there at Shared News. All right, let's dive right into talking about our girl Tayshia because it was a jam packed episode and honestly one of the best that we've seen in a while. It started with a group date competition for a one-on-one date. So the stakes were high here, and the task was to write and perform a love song for Tayshia. So the guys were panicked about this because they do not have any musical abilities, and it was just overall very awkward. Certainly no hidden talents with these guys, which we were expecting, but didn't really get any of that. Bennett did a rap, which was probably the most awkward, but he really tried his best. Demar was one of the ones who was actually really confident and played the guitar a bit and actually had a good song. But it was Ivan who ended up winning the one-on-one date because he had a beautiful poem written for Tayshia, and he actually brought her up to the stage or wherever he was standing to just have a more connected and a closer moment, and she really liked that. And it really made him stand out among the other guys. So, Avery, I want to know your thoughts. What do we think about how these guys handled this tough date?
I think, of course, they handled it well. With dates like this, I think the key is confidence, and I think Damar and Ivan definitely brought that. Bennett brought some confidence, but he brought like awkwardness with it as well, I think. But it's cute. Definitely no hidden talents, like you said, but Ivan really knew what he was doing. I think he made a good move by just sticking to like poetry and then bringing Tayshia up. And obviously, it worked out in his favor because he got that one on one date. And I have to say, the one on one was probably one of my favorite dates I've seen in a long time in Bachelor history. They had a Friday night in, which I thought was super cute and perfect for them. They had room service, a game night, the floor is lava, pillow fight, twister, all that fun stuff. And Ivan said that Tayshia is bringing out the best in him, and Tayshia even made note of that in her interview, which I thought was super cute. They then shared an emotional moment when they bonded over the perspective of their backgrounds and recent events have given them. So they touched on a lot of realness. We don't really see real conversations like this on the show ever. So I thought this was huge, actually. So Ivan was talking about his brother being incarcerated, which also led into more BLM talk. And basically, Tayshia broke down and had a hard time verbalizing how she felt. And then she opened up about her past in Orange County and how it was like growing up there. And she touched on how she never met someone or never been in a relationship where she was like the other person, so like mixed race. And she said having different beautiful relationships with people I probably wouldn't have the fortune to meet is amazing to me. So it's awesome that this show gave her the opportunity to do that, because I definitely feel that, growing up in certain areas, you don't always have people who look like you or people you could relate to on a level like that. So Ivan ended up getting the rose, and they ended it by looking at baby pictures, which I thought was super cute. But we just have to talk about how this date, there was just so much to it, there was so much chemistry. They brought up important issues, and of course it's 2020. Tayshia's the Bachelorette, but she's also the Black Bachelorette. So with that comes with using the platform to bring awareness to certain issues. And I think they did that in like a great way. Whether the cameras were on or off, they were going to be having a conversation like this. But more power to them that, their voices speak volumes, and something like this has never been talked about on this show. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. Gabby, what were your thoughts on this date, the chemistry, the conversation, everything about it?
It was so good. I'm so used to dates on The Bachelor just being so short and, frivolous. Each person says about two sentences and then, we call it a day. But this one just kept going and they were talking about such important conversations, like you were saying. And I think it's just great on the producer's part for filming this conversation and for airing this because we're all in the middle of 2020, which is such a crazy year. And for this show to be airing during 2020, like, it's impossible for us to not be talking about this stuff, especially on TV and especially in a setting where two people are dating and getting to know each other and learning about their backgrounds. So I thought it was incredible. I hope we get to see more dates like this. And I really didn't think it was forced or anything. They both had pasts that had to deal with things that everyone's dealing with in 2020. And it was just a real raw conversation and they really bonded over it. So I hope their relationship keeps going and that we can just look at this moment as a good example for seeing real relationships and real connections develop on TV. And we loved the fact that Ivan got that rose. So he's all set for next week. And that brings us to our second group date, which had Zach, Kenny, Riley, Blake, Bennett, and DeMar on it. So this is the second group date. And this is the one where Becca and Sydney come on to help Tayshia out with a game of Truth or Dare, which they called Tayshia's Truth or Dare. So basically, it was a scavenger hunt of dares, which included gross smoothies that the guys had to drink on camera, weird stuff in it like octopus and like intestines and cow things. And it was just very gross, but the guys did it. Another thing they had to do was get Chris Harrison's signature on a part of their body. And there was also a moaning bullhorn competition and the hot pepper proposal. So some wild stuff going on here. This is another crazy, weird, and embarrassing date. But these guys were as good as sports as ever. They've been seriously so chill and just willing to do anything for Tayshia, I think. So who stood out to you on this group date?
I mean, they were all such good sports. It was such an odd, crazy, weird date. I'm like, who comes up with this kind of stuff, I thought DeMar stood out. It wasn't anyone who really stood out enough to me, but I thought DeMar and maybe Zach, but it's kind of hard to tell on a date like this. Everyone was such a good sport about the awkward things they have to do.
Yeah, I think it was funny, a way for them to like release some steam or just have a bit of comedic relief, in the midst of all the drama and tough things going on in the house. But I would say Bennett stood out to me just because his proposal was so heartfelt, even though he had this like hot chili pepper in his mouth. So I think he pushed through the pain and did a really good job at that. The next half of the date was the truth part of the Truth or Dare date, which was the cocktail party or the after party that night. And it's where Tayshia got to ask some hard questions for the guys, and they ended up opening up a lot to her because of that. Bennett actually talked about breaking off a previous engagement that he was in. And he said that the fake proposal that we were just talking about, where he gave a heartfelt proposal to Tayshia, he said that was a reality check and a turning point for him because he was getting in the feels and he was starting to feel like this could be real and he could be falling for Tayshia. And he, at that moment, thought he was going to get that group date rose. Zach then had some time with Tayshia as well. They were in the hot tub and he was talking about how he's shy sometimes with her, but it just means he's nervous when he's around her. But overall, they're really comfortable together and they seem to have a free-flowing conversation. And he also thought he was going to get the group date rose. And Tayshia ended up giving it to him. So what do we think about Zach getting this rose? I certainly thought it was going to be Bennett after all that, but I could see where Zach would get that as well. What did you think, Avery?
Well, I think Tayshia, first off, was asking all the right questions. I was like, she's really like getting good questions out of them or answers out of them. But I thought Bennett at first was going to get it as well. And I think so did he. He was super confident in that. When Zach got in the hot tub with Tayshia, I was originally thinking, okay, this is kind of awkward. And then he explained how he's shy and just nervous around her. And I realized they do have this sense of like comfort together. So I kind of understood more at the end why he did get the rose, but it did kind of come as a shock to me.
Totally.
All right, let's get into the part where Ben and Ed go over to Tayshia's at the same time. Well, Ed accidentally went to Chris Harrison's room because he thought it was Tayshia's. It was pretty awkward. Chris answers the door like, "What are you doing here?" I mean, we all probably know that producers pushed this one for pure entertainment. Chris invites him in for a drink. Meanwhile, Ben goes over to Tayshia's and he basically goes over there to clear the air and kind of confess to her that his guard does go up when he's around her, and she actually agreed that hers does as well. I thought this was a great moment for them and much needed. I think it was great timing. He got to say everything that he didn't get to say last week, and it seemed like Tayshia really appreciated it. At the end, she said she did forgive him because it seems like he means it. And I mean, from a viewer's point of view, it did really seem like he meant it. I think this was great redemption for Ben, great timing. It really worked in his favor. Gabby, what did you think about this smooth move by Ben?
It was a smooth move. I've been rooting for Ben since last week, so I was really glad that he like pushed himself to go do this and talk to her and make sure he got time before the rose ceremony. And I think she was like secretly rooting for him too, because I think she likes him and was just disappointed that he didn't fight for her in that moment during last week's episode. So I feel like she was, there was a little something in the back of her mind saying, I hope Ben like comes to talk to me or shows or proves himself a little bit. And he ended up doing that. And you could tell that they were just all happy and giggles after, they cleared the air a little bit. So yeah, I'm still team Ben after that for sure. But now
Me
I
too.
want to
They're
talk
so
about
cute together.
they're so cute. They're so cute. With that said, I want to talk about Noah being the villain this episode because that was one of the major points that we have to touch on. The guys were still upset about him crashing their wrestling date and getting the rose, and it seemed like they were taking jabs at him all episode. At one point, Noah admits that it's starting to bother him. I think the guys are just being mean and harsh to Noah because they're jealous. It certainly seemed like that at first. He didn't really do anything wrong. He was just trying to be a standout guy, but these guys were just saying mean things about him or saying that he didn't get the rose or he got it, for no reason and all this stuff that sort of gets to your head where I could see that Noah was getting upset about that. But, this was a major part of the episode and it bled into the rose ceremony and Tayshia getting upset. But at this point, just knowing that Noah is a villain in these guys' eyes, which team are you on? Are you on Noah's side or are you on the guy's side based on everything that happened tonight?
Well, okay, I understand like the guys are jealous of Noah and whatnot, but I don't think they have to keep bringing it up. At the same time, it kind of bothered me what Noah did tonight. He kind of was almost like a tattletale, but I also understood where he was coming from. But then it kind of just turned into like, what is this? What are we getting out of this? But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Noah. He didn't really do anything wrong. All he did was jump over the fence. Like he shot his shot. But at the end of the day, there's jealousy. I think the guys should drop it by now, but they have nothing else to really talk about. So I don't know. I don't hate Noah, but he's not my favorite. And I think this whole thing is just petty.
Okay. Yes.
But we have to talk about the cocktail party before the second rose ceremony. Ben kept his promise by grabbing Tayshia first, as we hoped and expected. Riley asked her to officially be her boyfriend, and Brendan and Noah also got some time in there. I don't know if you guys have caught on to this, but it seems like Tayshia's always the one making the first move to kiss Brendan. I've noticed lately, but Noah then decided to tell Tayshia that the guys are mocking her, questioning her thought process because she gave Noah the rose. I think it was a very bold move for Noah to do this, but Tayshia, as we saw, got super upset. She went to confront the guys and she canceled the rest of the cocktail party. then the guys became even more upset with Noah for not talking to them about it first. And he basically, it just made the whole situation worse. It was kind of like, okay, Noah, what are you doing? And then it turned into a huge miscommunication. Gabby, I want to know what you think about this. Like, Noah's decision to talk to Tayshia about the guys, was this a low blow? Was he trying to stir the pot? Do you think he kind of was lying? What are your thoughts?
I honestly think he was just being genuine and letting Tayshia know how he felt, because the last few days he's been, being mildly bullied by these guys. And when she asks, how are you and what's going on in the house, like, that's just what came up. I really don't think he was trying to start anything, especially because when she asked, can I have a name, like, who's saying these things, he didn't give it to her. He just said, I think you should find out for yourself or ask these guys what's going on. So I think that was another telltale sign that he wasn't trying to start anything with any of these guys, but more squash it and just let her know. But at the same time, she took it to another level and got very upset and was storming in the room, and the guys could tell how angry she was and were just like very uncomfortable and panicked themselves. And then of course, like, another fight sort of broke out with all the guys, because I think it was, like you said, just a complete miscommunication. Noah had different intentions, I think, than the guys thought he did when he told her all of that. And then, he made it, he ended up making it worse, unfortunately for him, because the guys just still don't like him. And I think, we see in the promo for next week that the tensions keep boiling and things just keep getting worse. So they should drop it, as you said, at this point, because it's just petty stuff. And Tayshia's certainly not happy about it, but it doesn't look like they're dropping it anytime soon. With that, we go straight to the rose ceremony, because Tayshia canceled the rest of the cocktail party. And I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of the guys were mostly upset, because they ended up not getting the extra time with her that they needed that night, because Noah brought everything up that made her upset. So just another reason to make these guys angry towards Noah. Once we get to the rose ceremony, though, Tayshia says absolutely nothing to the guys and goes straight into handing out the roses. We get some more interviews from Bennett and Kenny, just talking about their frustration with Noah. Bennett calls it babysitting. I think it's funny because everyone just seems to talk to Noah and, address him as though he's a child. And I think he is one of the youngest guys there, but it's really his baby face. Like, he has a baby face, but that doesn't mean he's like a child. I don't know. I'm like really defending Noah right now, so maybe I'm team Noah. But anyways, Bennett calls it babysitting, which is kind of funny. And Kenny calls it a chess move. So he thinks it was, deliberate and planned out, because Noah already had a rose and it wouldn't affect him that much. So different takes here. Very interesting to hear what the guys think. But in the end, the guys that ended up going home were Kenny, Joe, Chasen, and Jordan. So those are some big names, some people all the way back from Claire's season who we've been watching. Certainly some fan favorites. I think Joe, during the wrestling match, gave us some funny one-liners, and he was starting to become a fan favorite, and we had to say goodbye to him this week. So that was sad. But Ed ended up getting her final rose. So all the drama that was leading up to the final rose during that ceremony, she gave it to Ed. So Avery, I want to know who, if you were Tayshia, who would you have saved tonight with your final rose?
Out of the 4 that got sent home, I would save Joe, because you just brought up a great point. He was giving us some good one-liners, and he's just one of those happy spirits. Like, I loved seeing him on the show, and we were just starting to see more of him. Chasen definitely faded off. We saw a lot of him at the beginning, but now next thing we know, he's going home. Kind of the same thing with Kenny. So yeah, I would save Joe. What about you?
I would have not saved Ed. I think he's just kind of like
No.
not in the main circle of guys, and I just have never seen them like have a real moment where their connection is growing. Maybe it is, and we just really haven't seen a moment like that. But I haven't seen that with her and Ed, so I wouldn't have saved him. But at the same time, Kenny and Chasen, I didn't love them either. They were kind of, pot stirrers as well. Jordan was not a huge name or face, I don't think. But Joe, I totally would have saved Joe as well, because he just seems so sweet and like such a nice guy. So maybe they weren't falling in love, but he was definitely a great addition to have on the show.
Yes.
Next up, we want to take a look at all the comments that you guys are giving us. So if you haven't commented your thoughts or reactions yet, do that now so we can get to all of them. We're going to see what you all had to say on Twitter and YouTube about tonight's episode. We are certainly down to the last few guys. I'm surprised that she got rid of so many this week. I think even the guys were saying, you know, we're going to have to start making some big cuts because it's getting down to the wire. So we lost some good ones tonight.
We are, and we will definitely continue to. I think you made a good point earlier, though. I don't think Noah's intentions were necessarily bad, but when something like that happens, you know, the other guys always think like, oh, okay, that's a tattletale. He just snitched on all of us, but he didn't. We saw it with like Yosef, how he approached a situation like that where Noah she asked him. So that's like the difference.
Right. It's the approach for sure. So we're going to have to watch Noah and see how he acts in the future episodes. But we have some comments here, so let's check out what you all are saying. Hurricane Stephania says, why are we all sleeping on Damar? Very true. I think Damar is slowly coming into, you know, the front runners and the top group of guys. So I'm excited to see more of Damar. I think she really likes him. So it's a good sign that he's going to stick around and we'll see more of him.
Yes. That's funny. My mom just brought up Damar too. She's like, he's my favorite. I want to see more of him. I'm like, I agree. All right. Tori said, Tayshia picking Ed over Joe. Right? That's what we were just talking about. I don't understand what she sees in Ed, or maybe it's what the producers see in Ed at this rate, but definitely Joe over Ed any day.
Jamaris says, Noah oddly reminds me of new Tyler C. Okay. New Tyler C as in Tayshia's Tyler C, the one, or Claire's Tyler C, the one who went home the first night for like snitching on one of the other guys. Who was it? It was Yosef, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminds me of him too, for sure. I could see that.
Forgot about him. All right. Jake said, Ben, I'm going to walk to a room undercover, secret agent style, he says in his bright ass white t-shirt. I mean, yes, but he did it so well. I love Ben. Can't say anything bad about Ben.
That was funny. He's like, I'm in secret agent mode, and it's like you're just walking like a few feet down the road. But okay, whatever you want to call it. Emmy says, OMG, not the producers having Ben and Ed both sneak to Tayshia's suite at the same time. Totally agree with this here. It was a funny clip they put together, or this awkward moment, I guess you would say, but it ended up being a funny moment. I think it's been interesting to see all the little times Chris Harrison appears like in the show, much more than in previous seasons. I think they're, running out of things to do or something, or Chris just really wants to be more part of the shows because he always has a funny cameo in each episode, and that's always fun to see.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny how we all caught on to this just being a setup for Ed. Like, he really took the L in this situation. All right. Jam said, the smile she has with Brendan and Ben is unmatched. I totally agree. It's definitely undeniable, and it's clear as day how she feels about those two, which I can definitely hop behind this train. And I think those are my two favorites, with probably Ivan, of course, as well. But
yes,
it's very cute.
Mrs. G says, these guys, Bennett cracks me up. Joe needed to stay longer. Ivan, she was right. He was a dark horse. I could not have said it better myself. These are exactly the tropes that these guys hold right now. And, justice for Joe. We want him to stay longer. Hopefully we'll see him on Paradise.
I know. I hope so. All right, Brett said, this conversation between Ivan and Tayshia is one of my favorite moments in the history of this franchise, period. I absolutely agree. Just everything about it, from just the current events to the personal aspects of it. They touched on everything, and just the chemistry. I could go on for days about this, but I loved it. It was amazing. We need more content like that.
Same. We do. All right. Rain says, suddenly the Bachelorette just turned into Survivor. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I didn't even think about that, but that's true with all these little crazy group date and like goofy scenarios they have these guys doing. It's reality shows just like combined. It's a collab.
All right, Ariana said, Damar provides such great content and is so all around great. I hope he becomes the Venmo John of Paradise, but actually ends up with someone in the end. Yes, if he does not end up with Tayshia, he would be a great contestant on Paradise, because he's definitely someone I think a lot of people want to see more of as well.
Noah. Oh, wait. I was so excited to read the tweet. Okay. Victor says, Noah, dude, don't speak. Yes, sometimes Noah can put his foot in his mouth, especially when he has a rose and he kind of flaunts it a bit, saying, oh, it's so nice to have a rose, and then wonders why all the guys are mad at him. So I can agree that Noah should just keep quiet a little bit more, and maybe he'll have more luck on the show.
All right, Ashley said, I still don't like Becca.
Oh.
Well, good thing she's not the Bachelorette anymore.
All right, looks like that's all we have time for tonight. But if you didn't get a chance to share your comment, do it now, and we will read those. Thanks so much for tuning in. Of course, we want to know all your thoughts about this week's episode. What did you think of Noah, his decision to tell Tayshia, and the fact that the guys think he's a villain? And what did you think about the 4 that we said goodbye to today? Were any of them any of your favorites? Let us know in the comments. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring the bell, because we'll be back talking all things Bachelorette and Tayshia in the future. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Gabby Gonta. You can follow me on socials at Gabby Gonta. And Avery, where can they find you?
You could follow me at Avery Grooms.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll see you next week for more Tayshia. Bye.